Good morning, I'm Rosalie. Today we'll feature resources to plan for your financial future, your healthcare needs, love in your life, and to listen to the voices in your head to bring out your best, all when we return. As communities around the world grapple with devastating impacts of natural disasters and COVID-19 pandemic, Airbnb launched Airbnb.org, an independent 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to providing temporary stays to people in times of crisis, and that focuses on emergency response to provide stays. Joining us this morning is Kristen Berlacher, the head of Airbnb.org programs. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
So how did the idea of Airbnb begin?
Sure. So the idea for Airbnb.org has really been many years in the making. It started with a single Airbnb host in New York City during Hurricane Sandy. She saw the impact of the flooding on her neighbors and she wanted to help. And by that, she wanted to open her home for free for people who needed a temporary place to stay. Fast forward 8 years later, we now have over 100,000 hosts who are participating in this program.
So disasters inspired Airbnb programs?
Yeah, so the program was inspired by our host community, and really it was this common theme we were hearing from our hosts time and time again. When they saw their communities in crisis, they felt compelled to help, and Airbnb.org is one way for them to do that.
Like supporting frontline workers and organizations fighting the spread of COVID-19?
The program started with a single host in New York City during Hurricane Sandy, and today we have hosts all around the world engaging. The way it works is whether it's folks, healthcare workers fighting COVID-19 or people that have been impacted by a natural disaster, we work directly with local governments to understand the needs locally, and then we reach out to our hosts to see if folks are willing and able to offer their homes for free or at a discount. And we partner hand in hand with nonprofits to identify guests and refer them directly to our site to find temporary housing.
What plans are in place to help communities impacted by disaster and COVID-19?
Airbnb, the company, is going to be committing 400,000 shares to Airbnb.org initially, and our founders are each personally donating $2 million, so $6 million total to the organization. And Airbnb.org will be using those funds to help work directly with nonprofits who are on the front lines. Two great examples are the International Federation of the Red Cross and CORE. Here in the United States, we're working with CORE to house their relief workers who are setting up testing facilities all around the country.
Are donations made to local organizations?
So the donations go directly to the nonprofits that are then in turn using those funds to book housing on the platform. So it'll go directly to NGOs to identify how best to leverage the funds for COVID-19.
Here in South Florida, we're no stranger to natural disasters. So what's the process to offer a place to stay for those who are displaced by a hurricane or a COVID frontline worker?
So if you're a host in Miami and you want to help during a hurricane, you can go to Airbnb.org, sign up your home, and you'll be connected directly with a guest who is in need of temporary housing, either through our nonprofits or folks that are coming directly to the site seeking housing.
Thank you so much, Kristen, for joining us this morning to share Airbnb's mission to provide people with places to stay in times of crisis.
Thank you so much for having me.
Being in love is tough during a pandemic, with restrictions on weddings and large gatherings on hold. But not on hold is couples showing their love for one another when getting engaged. In fact, a recent study said more than 6 in 10 engaged couples say stay-at-home restrictions strengthen their relationships. Joining us to discuss how couples can prepare to say I do in style is Sally Morrison, the Director of PR for Natural Diamonds at De Beers. Good morning, Sally.
Good morning. Good morning.
Sally, what has research revealed as more or less couples getting engaged during 2020's COVID pandemic?
Well, what we're hearing around the country is a lot more people are getting engaged, and we thought that was sort of an interesting piece of information. And so we did some research with Dr. Terry Real, who's a relationship therapist, and he said part of this has very much to do with COVID. And when people are sheltering in place, they're together every day, going through something which for most of us has been an extremely challenging time, it has led them to reconsider what's important in their lives. And primarily that is the person they're going through this with. And that has sort of led to an acceleration of people saying, okay, this is important to me. I want to commit to you forever. Let's get engaged now. So that was his sort of insight about why we're seeing this phenomenon that's being reported around the country.
So what's most important for couples to consider looking for a diamond ring? The quality or the size?
I'm not sure it's either of those things, actually. I think because we're in this like more personal, reflective moment, it's all about authenticity and sort of personalization. So I think what couples are looking for are simple, iconic, symbolic expressions of what they're feeling, something that reflects them. So something that is very particular to her style, that is, perhaps got personalized engraving in it, is a shape she particularly likes, something like that. And it's less about overall how it looks to the world. It's not about how big it is, it's about what it means to them. And of course, a natural diamond has been for many, many years the absolute authentic symbol of real commitment and love. But I think the important thing about a diamond ring right now is really about the emotional investment. It's about what it means to you and how it represents your inner life and represents the connection you've made to someone else. So I think the most important thing, and certainly in terms of the consumers we talked to, the size of the stone was not such a great consideration. It was about the shape, it was about the style, it was about personalization, perhaps what was inscribed inside it, and what it means to them and the person they're in the relationship with.
All right, Sally, so tell us where viewers can find more information.
I think there's lots of really great websites around with beautiful inspiration. Forevermark.com has some wonderful, wonderful photographs and pictures to inspire you, lots of different styles and designs. Or you can go perhaps to your local mall jeweler's website, whether it's K.com, who have a beautiful. They have the Leo cut, which is their proprietary cut, a beautiful diamond again. Jared.com. There are so many great stores that have really wonderful websites, because I think everybody has really, really upped their digital game, right, during this year, during COVID. So they've really put a lot of focus on that, and I think it's a great place. We do know that 86% of people considering getting engaged start that journey online.
And diamonds are a girl's best friend. Nothing like holding and trying on a diamond ring.
And trying it on for sure, yes.
All right, thank you so much, Sally, for joining us to share new trends in couples in love getting engaged. According to the 2020 U.S. Census, the 65 and older population grew over 34%, or almost 14 million, during the past decade. As we age, we must also plan to pay for benefits to meet our health care needs in the future. Joining us this morning is Joseph DeCapua, healthcare expert and CEO of Infinity Healthcare Group, with 3 primary care practices in Broward County, being Margate, 2, and 1 in Sunrise. Good morning, Joseph.
Good morning, Rosalie.
Joseph, what does aging into Medicare mean?
Well, Rosalie, aging into Medicare means that a person is 64 years old and that they're going to become 65 next year. So what happens is Medicare notifies the recipient that they will be eligible for Medicare and that they could either opt in or opt out of Medicare. If they decide to enroll for Medicare, what happens is that Medicare costs the senior $148.50 a month. Well, if you decide to take your Social Security benefit check, that $148.50 is taken out of that check monthly. If you don't and you decide to wait till you're 67 to take your Social Security check, you then become responsible to pay for the $148.50, which then is taken out automatically out of your checking account. You might decide not to opt in because you have a job and that you want to keep the benefits that already exist for you.
So at that time, you'll start receiving all kinds of Medicare companies' literature in the mail.
3 months before you become eligible for Medicare or Social Security benefits, Social Security will notify you, and you get all this information to help you make a decision whether you want to accept Social Security and whether you want to enroll into Medicare. 6 months before all that, you will be getting, and believe me, I went through it, you'll be getting tons of information from the different Medicare Advantage companies that are out there. And you are so inundated, and it's so much information that you end up throwing it into the garbage pail instead of looking at it and started educating yourself. And I did the same thing, and I'm in healthcare, so it is very confusing.
So what are your options as you age in?
There are 4 options. There's what we call traditional Medicare, then there's traditional Medicare with a supplement, then there's Medicare Advantage plans, and then if you decide to stay employed and keep your employee health insurance. So those are the 4 options you have. Traditional Medicare, basically it covers hospital and outpatient. So what we call is Part A is hospital, Part B is outpatient, which would be your primary care doctor, would be anything that's done on an outpatient basis. And usually with Medicare, it's 80% of what we call Medicare allowable, which is the dollar amount that Medicare sets as reimbursement for a particular visit. So what happens is they pay 80%, you become responsible for 20%. So then what happens is if you still want to stay traditional Medicare and you want something to cover that 20%, instead of putting that 20% out, you would then buy a supplement. So you would have traditional Medicare with a supplement. Well, the supplement picks up the 20%. So actually the only dollar amount that comes out of your pocket is for that supplement plan. It depends on who you go with and what benefits are included. And then you would also have to buy what we call a Part D plan, which is for drugs, your prescription drugs. And what happens is that plan you would look at and see if it covers the drugs you're on, if you're taking any, depends on the plan that you pick. Then you have Medicare Advantage, which is traditional Medicare. It covers everything that traditional Medicare does, the hospital and outpatient, but it gives you added benefits. For example, vision, hearing, dental, over-the-counter drugs, transportation, home health. If you're in the hospital, you come home for the first week, Meals on Wheels. And also a very important one, because I could tell you, my wife nags me to death about this one, the gym. Going to the gym, they actually pay for your gym membership. And it's to almost any gym. So that you actually get a gym membership for yourself and you go. So everything is with Medicare Advantage geared to preventive medicine, and they have all these different additional benefits that they give you.
All right, Joseph, tell our viewers where they can learn more about aging in for Medicare.
Rosalie, the best place is through their primary care physician's office. We are here to help you, so please feel free to call us at 561-400-0972. Again, 561-400-0972.
Thank you, Joseph, for joining us with valuable information on Medicare benefits.
My pleasure, Rosalie.
2020 brought new challenges at every turn, including managing our money, which should be one of our top-of-the-mind concerns this new year. Now is a perfect time to get your finances in order before we turn the page to what we hope will be a more positive new year. A new study from Fidelity Investment finds women in particular are ready to do just that. In fact, more than 67% say they have been much more engaged in managing their money since the pandemic began. And I know that I have been. Joining us with insights and tips for getting your finances on track for 2021 is Head of Women Investors at Fidelity, Lorna Capista. Good morning, Lorna.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So tell us about what Fidelity's latest research revealed about the pandemic's impact on women.
So we surveyed women and men from across the country, and we really just wanted to understand the impact on finances and life. And what we did find is that for working women, especially caregivers, 4 in 10 were assessing either leaving the workforce or reducing hours. The stress, as you know, has been off the charts for everybody, but definitely impacting women most.
So what are some ways women can get more financially engaged and take on a positive mode for the new year?
So one example of that is the series that you mentioned called Women Talk Money. It's a weekly discussion that we hold. Everybody's invited, and we talk about top money questions and topics. It's jargon and judgment free. And we really have a nice community of thousands of women that join us. So that's one example. But in addition, you can reach out directly for one-to-one help with a financial professional to have a consultation. And at Fidelity, we offer that help for free because it's so important that everybody assesses their financial situation and develops a financial roadmap so they can deal with what the unexpected, which we know happens, as well as plan for the future.
In your conversations online, you discuss 75% of women will take on caregiving responsibilities. I know from personal experience, it can take a toll on you and your finances. So what are some options women should consider? Do they step out of the workforce, or do they start a home-based business, as I did? What do they need to do, and what should they be thinking about in terms of their finances?
So as you said, there are a number of options, but where to begin if you're assessing leaving the workforce is to really assess what you need at home and what flexibility work needs to provide to keep you. Employers are offering new benefits that can help with caregiving or some more flexibility. So look into that before you make the decision. The second thing, and often we women don't necessarily do this, is reach out and talk to your manager. They're likely interested in working with you to help you figure out how to stay. So have that conversation and see if there's a flexible option for you. But if that doesn't work and you do decide to leave, we just recommend making sure you understand the full financial picture of that decision. And then to your point, assess different options. The good news is you can stay on track with your financial plan and goals. You may just need a little help to walk through what the changes are going to be and then what you need to do to take those steps. And that's where a one-to-one consultation really can come into play to get the right help to make informed decisions.
And Lorna, not only are women taking on caregiving responsibilities, women also live longer than men. So share in some important steps women should be taking now to prepare for their future.
So I like to call the potential of living longer than men superiority in our longevity. And what that means, though, is we get many years later on to really enjoy. So the big things that we really need to be thinking about is starting early and saving for retirement, those longer years. As both those years, we need to make sure that that money stretches, as well as need to make sure that we can cover healthcare costs. But you really need to make sure as you're doing that, you're thinking about today and just building up that emergency savings just in case.
All right, with 90% of women solely responsible for their finances, share a year-end checklist to start off 2021 in a positive mode.
So some simple year-end checklists is what I like to recommend that Fidelity provides, which are some simple guidelines. So first is just organizing your expenses, what you're saving and what you're spending, so that you have it in control. Second, as I mentioned before, make sure that you are building up that emergency savings to cover at least 3 to 6 months of expenses. Third, I mentioned employers before. If you're working, make sure to review the benefits that are offered and take full advantage of them. And fourth, now is a great time to reach out for help. So don't hesitate to do so. Fidelity offers it for that one-to-one help for free.
Lorna, where can our viewers find more resources to help them fulfill their checklist?
To sign up for Women Talk Money, which can help, you can go to fidelity.com/WTM and register for that discussion. And you can call us for help at 1-800-FIDELITY or visit us online at fidelity.com.
Thank you, Lorna, for joining us this morning to share tips for getting your finances on track for 2021.
Thank you for having me.
Happy holidays. The 2020 holiday season will be nothing as we know in the past. But you can escape today's reality and take on a positive approach to entertain yourself by reading a great book. Joining us this morning is journalist and best-selling author Gayle Forman to share how she took on the evilest women in literature, the Wickeds. Good morning, Gayle.
Good morning, Rosalie. Good to be here.
Gayle, your journey from a journalist working at 17 magazine to a best-selling fiction writer is a dream come true for any writer. And I read an article where you're quoted as saying, "I love writing novels, so thank you, my readers, for loving my books. Without you, there would be no me and the voices in my head." So tell us, Gayle, about how the voices in your head brought to life your newest release, The Wickeds.
I love that quote. I'm so glad you brought that up. I would say I was given the opportunity to do something pretty new and different for me. Amazon came to me and said, we're asking authors to re-envision fairy tales. What do you think? Put a modern twist on it. And I don't usually write fantasies and haven't spent a lot of time sort of ensconced in the world of fairy tales, but of course I knew the Disney versions of it. And I sort of dove head first into some of the original fairy tales, or the original ones that were written down, because they were also, folk tales that had been passed on from generation to generation. And as I did, it wasn't a specific fairy tale that fascinated me, but it was the story of the wicked stepmothers. Rapunzel's abducting stepmother, Mother Gothel, Snow White's very jealous and murderous stepmother, and Cinderella's evil stepmother. And when I read the original Grimm versions, I was really surprised by things like the fact that Cinderella's father is actually there. He's not dead. So I wondered, what was the deal? Why was this father around and letting the stepmother, abuse Cinderella like this? And with Snow White, I kept thinking about her mirror and what a gaslighting mirror was, telling her terrible things about herself, as so many of our mirrors do. And as I thought about this, I thought about these women, and I thought, I don't think we have the story straight. I think we're getting somebody else's version. So instead of retelling a single fairy tale, I asked if I could take these three women and tell their stories again, and sort of through the generations. So you see the wicked stepmothers, and you see their daughters, and you even see their granddaughters, who are the young, beautiful teenage princesses of today.
I understand, Gayle, there is even more to the story than even the Wickeds know. So how does revenge play out in the family-friendly version of the evilest women in literature?
Well, because they get together and they want to get revenge on their stepdaughters, who, by the way, they consider them daughters. It was interesting going back and reading about the Grimm fairy tales and realizing it was too taboo to put a mother in there, so they made it stepmother. But as a mother of two teenage daughters, I understand the intensity and the conflict of that relationship. So I was very interested in that. And so they get together, they think their daughters are the source of all of their grief, all of their misery. And so they're like, we're going to go and take revenge on them. It's about time we take revenge. The thing is, a funny thing happens on the way to the castle as they're making their way toward their daughters. And they learn, and we learn as readers, that it wasn't their daughters after all that had caused so much of their problems. I mean, yes, their daughters were teenage girls, and they were having the same conflicts with their mothers about doing chores and sneak out at night to meet boys that still happen with teenage girls. But really, there was so much more to the story. So that by the time they get to see their daughters, they understand that they are not what needs vanquishing, nor the granddaughters, but maybe the narrative that has been cast on them all needs to be retold.
So how do those voices in your head inspire you to take classic fables and expand on the tale to create a whole new meaning?
It really did have to do in this case with going back and reading the source material, it was almost as if it sort of spoke to itself, like the story wanted to be rewritten itself. So as I was reading, I couldn't write down fast enough the ideas I had. And then I sat down and I wrote the things so quickly because I knew that there were so many elements of the story that I wanted to kind of retell. For instance, the fairy godmother in Cinderella, who you think is this beneficent woman who comes and gives Cinderella, gets her ready for the ball. But as you find out in my version of it, she's actually more like a godfather, a sort of mob boss who, can help you for the right price, help your princess daughter or help your daughter marry a prince so that you can get yourself out of gambling debt.
Oh my goodness.
So as I went through, that's what Cinderella's stepmother finds out what happened. That Cinderella's father actually got in a great deal of debt, and she sort of paid the price for it. So it was really, in this case, I was just following these women sort of down down the path, down the garden path, and it was almost like they wanted me to hear their true story, and I did, and I wrote it down. It was so much fun.
So how has your career changed, Gail, when your novel, If I Stay, became an international sensation and then brought to the screen, starring Chloe Grace Moretz?
Sure. I mean, it still is something that seems so surreal because that was a book that I wrote sort of in the corner of my family's living room. I was telling a very personal story because it was based on friends of ours who'd been killed in an accident, much like the one that Mia's family is in. And when I was writing the book, I was sort of in this bubble because I was bringing my friends back and I was writing the story about all these different kinds of love. So when it went out into the world and started to have this impact on people and resonating with people, it was just incredible. And so the film was just a growth of that. So first, I saw it when it was published and people of all ages really responding to so much of the theme. And I think the fact that I put my heart into that book. And then when it jumped to the screen, that was a whole other level because you're seeing things, talk about the voices in your head, you're seeing things that you thought about and imagined suddenly they're real and they're there. So it was incredible and humbling and magical.
Great story, Gail. Thank you so much for joining us this morning to share your newest release, The Wickeds, a family-friendly version of the evilest women in literature.
You too. Happy holidays. Thanks.
It's that time of year to plan for your future. So listen to the voices in your head to benefit you and those you love. Give from your heart. Enjoy the restrictive holiday season no matter what, with your family and friends. Share with us your plans to live life to benefit your future at facebook.com/Rose Lee Show. And follow us on Instagram at The Rose Lee Show. Watch this episode and many others 24/7 at RoseleeArcherShow.com. Happy and healthy holiday season from all of us at Rose Lee Productions. Blessings to you and your family.